Hey everyone, welcome. As you pile into the room, we can see the numbers just going up and up and up. Should be a fantastic webinar today. We're going to be talking about all things meetups and networking. So as we make our way in, we'll just wait for the numbers to settle and then we can get started. Wow, they're still coming in. So welcome everyone. We look forward to having a lovely chat with you today. This is terrific. It's still going in. We have Anja and Tracy here. That's going to take us through all things networking and events. All right, welcome everyone and good morning. Welcome to today's Career Catalyst Employability Seminar, brought to you by the good folk at Study Melbourne and us at Outcome.Life. Today we're talking about meetups and networking events and how attending meetup and network events can help you get a job in your field of study here in Australia. My name's Saporito, but you can call me Dom. That's what everyone calls me. And I'm the co-founder of Outcome.Life, a business set up 5 years ago with the specific purpose of improving employment outcomes for international students. So today's webinar would not be possible if not for the good folk at Study Melbourne and Global Vic. For those of you who are new to these webinars, Study Melbourne provides a whole host of amazing services for international students, from legal advice to emotional support, and initiatives like this aimed at helping students become more employable in their field of study. So please check out their website for all the wonderful things that, that Study Melbourne provide. So on with the show today. When it comes to securing meaningful employment here in Australia in your field of study, international students do often struggle, with only 15% of available positions advertised on job boards. They're highly applied for, and with hundreds and hundreds of applications being received by those looking to recruit, often there's actually nothing wrong with you. It's just that your applications are not even being read. So it may be time to start doing something a little bit different, and included in that are attending meetups and networking events where we know literally hundreds of international students that have secured employment through networking and attending those events. And it's what we call the hidden job market. And thank you, Anja, for putting up this slide, because I think that this is a fantastic metaphor for what's actually happening out in the job market. Only 15%, we're told, of jobs are ever advertised, and they are very, very heavily applied for. I had a recruitment agency for 14 years, and if I put up a job ad on Seek, for example, for a graduate role, I would expect 200 to 300 applications a day, which meant that after 2 or 3 days, I would need to take it down because I simply couldn't handle, up to 500-600 applications. But there's a better way, and it's what we call the hidden job market. And it's of that iceberg that you can see, it's those jobs that never even get advertised. And by attending networking events and going to meetups, industry meetups, we know, because we've seen it happen hundreds of times, you can get yourself in front of employers, get yourself in front of people that can refer you to jobs where the numbers reduce from going up against, 400 or 500 people down to only just a few. And here to talk about networking today and events, we have two special guests. The first being Tracy Bygrave, Director of Everything Matters, an events and marketing agency. And for the past 40 years, Tracy, all she's done is events. So I couldn't think of a better person to tell us how to take advantage of events in order to get a job or get yourself ready. And also Anja Goodhart, who's the marketing manager at Outcome.Life. And she's actually in charge of curating all of our events, and she's too seen firsthand just how many students are able to secure employment by attending events. So Tracy, over to you. Quick introduction. What's happening in the event space at the moment?
Oh, well, the event space is actually starting to pick up. Obviously, we're all aware that we pretty much lost a year of our lives in the past 12 months. Which was devastating, particularly for the event industry and across all sectors for all of us globally. But at the same time, we've seen an uptake, perhaps not as rapid recovery as other industry sectors. But nonetheless, certainly I think we're all starting to get a bit more comfortable to come out of our shells in our houses and to be able to, come together face to face again. And I think we all really miss the face-to-face interactions as much as this is incredibly wonderful and convenient, and should be a medium that we should continue to use. The advantages, and particularly when you're out there looking for in the job sector and starting that, looking and starting to think about how am I going to find that first position. There is absolutely nothing better than the face-to-face type of events happening. And we are starting to see those quite a bit, large ones as well as small ones coming back into the sector again. So it's a very exciting time, let's put it that way.
Terrific. And you have had an association with Swinburne for quite a while. Tell us a little bit about that, because Swinburne is known for just how practical they are with everything that they do. They do a lot of work integrated learning placements, and they do a lot of events for their students. And it's no coincidence that Swinburne students do tend to get jobs. They do. And it
Absolutely. I've been an educator a teacher at Swinburne for about 5 years now. I also actively run my consulting company, mostly focused in the marketing and creative industries sector. But being an educator at Swinburne is an absolute pleasure and a joy. I had done some other teaching at some of the other universities and TAPEs, and the reason why I'm at Swinburne is because of that initiative and that dedication. And it's certainly become even more so in the last couple of months with Swinburne and some of their vision and strategy for 2025 around the future of work, and around how do we provide the resources and the skills and experience to help the students really kind of get ready for being job ready and getting out into the industry. In the diploma of events, I teach across a couple different areas across business marketing and events, and particularly in our event diploma, we're really there to get you out there into the workforce. And again, you have to apply that yourself. Not every student is going to have that kind of opportunity, and it's only because of the personal effort that one puts into it. But we certainly, myself and some of the other educators in that particular course are, we're all industry working professionals. And again, there is that very first point of contact. We make mention of it on the very first day of class. We said, today your job starts here. Your career starts right here on your first day of class. And that's why taking and putting that effort and thinking about your university or your TAFE education, thinking about it in regards of, oh my gosh, this is actually my first opportunity. This is how I'm going to start building that network.
And it starts from day one, doesn't it? And people who know me know that I wish I had a giant net to catch every single international student when they land at the airport and pull them aside. And if there was one piece of advice that I would give every international student, and it's the exact advice that I have given my own children who are both at RMIT at the moment, and that is that you must attend at least one event. And I don't care if it's online, if it's during COVID and we can't go face to face, but preferably face to face in your field of study every week. And that you need to set aside that time and get out there. And Tracy, can I ask you, what is their job when they actually attend one of these events, if they do go to one? And I love Thursday nights for whatever reason, they're great nights to go to events. What's the things that they should be doing at events to increase their network?
I think the basic premise is, and I think sometimes people fall into a couple different scenarios, and and I must say, as much as I'm an extroverted person and I like to go out, I actually consider myself an introverted extrovert. And I'm sure there's probably a lot of people out there like that as well, or generally just being naturally introverted. So I think there's that getting that fear and that confidence of it shouldn't be viewed upon going to a meetup or any kind of, networking or event of any kind of that feeling of, oh my gosh, I have to come out of there. I have to leave with a dozen different contacts or having met a dozen different people. I think the one piece of advice I would say is to have quality. If you meet and end up only talking perhaps to one person the whole night, but it's great conversation and you really get involved in a deep conversation with that person, that's the kind of person that you can connect with later on and continue building that relationship. So for me, not thinking about it as if, whether it's online or face-to-face, that, and you're going to face-to-face events, that it isn't necessarily, it's not like Instagram where you're just like, oh my gosh, how many followers can I get? It's not about that. It is about the quality and the building of the relationships of people and finding and building that. And so I naturally, when I've gone to networking events or any type of industry event, I have that same kind of fear of like, and I've been in the industry 40 years, but I still have that. So to get over it, I just go, you know what, if I meet one or two or a couple really interesting people and have some really deep, meaningful conversations, I know that I have the ability to go back to them and continue building those kind of conversations and relationships.
Yeah, and I think that's good advice. So it's quality, not quantity. Like I say to all the international students and even my own children that, if you can come away from there with 3 really significant connections, and of course we do ask them to follow up, and I'll get you to talk about that in just a moment. But, if you can come away with 3 quality connections and be memorable and be remarkable in some way. You spoke, and this is what I want to touch on, having a deep conversation with people. How do students do that? And sorry, by the way, I forgot to mention at the very start, a little bit of housekeeping. Any questions, fire them through. The lovely Anja is going to monitor the Q&A bit and put it in chat. And we're going to give you lots of links, which are going to be resources for you to go out and find them. And the first couple that we're going to put in there is meetup.com. Meetup.com should be your best friend. You should be looking at that, registered, put some alarms in there and focus on the industries that you are interested in and the industries that you are studying. So that is a fantastic resource. And so, do look at it. But Tracy, can I ask you, how does someone that is perhaps a little bit shy, how do they go to an event and introduce themselves to people?
Well, I think it's just about understanding and working again, going in. It comes back to actually being prepared, I guess. It's one thing going, I need to throw myself out there. I need to involve myself into these things, and I'm going to join a couple different things or go to a couple things. But you actually need to do a little work first. You need to be prepared. Yep. You need to have, I think, Dom, you mentioned at one point, talking about your personal brand and having an understanding of what your personal brand is and who you are. I think the other thing as well is another piece of advice is, don't go to these types of events thinking you're actually going to get a job out of them. Yep. Right? It's about, again, it always comes back to those relationships and having those relationships and being able to then talk comfortably about who you are and your own personal journey of where you've come from and where you're trying and what you're trying to achieve and what you'd like to achieve. And yep. Yes, it's probably trying to look for a job, but it needs to be more than that. You need to be comfortable talking about who you are. And particularly, here we are in Australia, the most multicultural country in the world, and Melbourne being, if I understand correctly, the research, the most multicultural city, more so than even Sydney is. And so we have that ability to be interesting and curious with one another. And yep. I think it is about, if you're someone who is projects that curiosity about other people and not just, about the industry that you're kind of going into and things like that, but just interested in other people and really that active listening. We teach some classes at Swinburne and around that about, how do you actively listen to someone, so that you're kind of bringing in and going, and then being able to question them back, and hopefully they're doing the same for you. But I think it does come back to, spending a little time thinking about what your own personal brand is. And I think once you have an understanding of that, I think that confidence of having those opening conversations makes it a lot easier.
And I think it is all about confidence. And the only way to get confidence, and again, I say this to my own children, is it's practice. Yes, the first one you go along to, you may come away feeling that you probably didn't get as much out of it as you would have liked, but the more you do it, the better you get. One thing I love to tell students is that make sure that you can introduce yourself in a positive way. However, there can be a bit of a trick to it for new players. And I often say that whenever you go to an event, check out the older people in the room. Like it or not, people that look a little bit like Tracy and I, we're the ones that are most likely not only going to be able to perhaps offer you a job, and of course you never ask for a job, but you never know, but also refer you to people who could help. And the best way to do this is to go up to someone like us, and we're normally standing around, no one talking to us because we're old and people don't want to talk to us, and just introduce yourself and start like this and just say, hi, my name's Dom. What brings you here tonight or today? Simple.
Yeah.
Now, the good Lord gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. So you need to do twice as much listening as you do speaking.
Oh, I like that.
And people like Tracy and I try and shut us up because we will talk forever. Okay. So once you've introduced yourself, very simply, hi, my name's Dom. What brings you here this evening? We're going to talk for about 5 minutes and we're going to go on and on and on. And this gives you time to formulate in your mind your elevator speech. When we finally stop talking and say, sorry, I've been babbling on for a while, tell me about you. And that's where you can give your formulated pitch, and you've got about 30 seconds. You've got about 30 seconds to say, well, I'm a student at blah, 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 studying whatever, and coincidentally, whatever you were just talking about, this is my opinion. And have an opinion, be controversial, because for most people, we're looking for people who stand out. You've got to be memorable. You've got to be remarkable. Again, people who know me know that I bag Microsoft any opportunity I can get. Now, there is a part of me that can't stand Microsoft, but it is quite useful as well. But I do it so people remember me. And I think being memorable is a really, really important thing. And Tracy, you're trying to make your events memorable. So therefore, people attending the events, they need to be memorable too. Do you think that's good advice for young people?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's so important. It is that thing to be able to be remarkable. I mean, I actually think the whole thing of having an opinion is really important point that you touched on. And again, it's something that I talk a lot about in my own classes that I teach, and the assessment work that the students do I go, this is not about rote behavior. This is not about, I'm going to teach you something and then you're just going to refer back to it. As you go into the workforce, part of it is you need to have an opinion, and it doesn't mean it's right or wrong. Yeah. It's just, you need to have an opinion as an adult. And there will be times, when you go into your first job and you could be like the new person there and the most junior staff person there. And you might be sitting in a big boardroom in a company meeting, and the CEO might just turn to you and go, hey, Dom, what's your opinion on this? And you can't sit there and say nothing. So again, going to and attending events and things like that gives you that time, particularly while you're studying or at university or whatever you're doing, to practice that, to really practice and get that confidence in it. I think one of the other things too, and I'm going to be slightly controversial here, is I actually don't really believe it. I think it's good because I think they're actually very much on the decline, is the kind of traditional networking event, right? They still exist out there. And you go into things like meetups and things like that, and you'll still find some of those kind of traditional kind of networking events. And the reason why, here's my opinion, the reason why I don't particularly care for those traditional networking events is they're actually just established for the fact that people everybody's there for the same reason, to try to meet other people. And it's almost like some really bad professional speed dating kind of situation.
Totally agree. Totally.
Yeah. So I think what's really, really important is having this understanding of, again, it's like building relationships. Go to events, go to meetups, go to networking events that actually have a purpose other than that have a purpose, like a breakfast seminar or a panel luncheon discussion. And again, that gives you something to talk about, something as an icebreaker with the other people in the room.
Totally.
And that's just my own personal opinion of traditional networking events. And, let's all just show up at a function center or a bar or someplace like that. And you just see it. And it's just like a feeding frenzy of people trying to meet each other. And again, it's not about the quality of those connections.
Yeah. And so I'll give a couple of examples. As you know, at Outcome.Life, we place interns into internships. And we certainly tell all of our students that we place that you should be doing this all the time, but especially during your internship, you've got to go to meetups. Now, don't go to student meetups from school. Waste of time. They're not going to get you a job. It's good for getting a boyfriend or a girlfriend, perhaps, if that's what you're looking for, but not to get a job. I much prefer you to go to an industry event. And as you say, Tracy, not networking events. Go to industry events. And often, obviously half the students that we place are female, and females love fashion. And there's a meetup that happens in Melbourne every month, about the middle of the month, called Fashion Tech. Now, this meetup is where 30, 40, 50 answers to talk about how they can IT into their businesses to make their businesses better. Tracy, have a guess at how many students turn up to that event each month.
Oh, gosh. Oh,
0.
No.
Donuts. I'm the closest thing to a student, and I'm very, very far away from being a student. But to me, if you're a marketing person, an IT person, and you have a passion for the fashion industry, right? And that may be something that some people are passionate about, guys and girls. That's a type of industry event I want you to go to, because all those owners need IT people, marketing people, accounting people. There was one lady who I remember presented that her work was that she 3D prints women's clothes bespoke for people. So you would turn up there, give them your shoe size, and you would pick a style of shoe, and they would 3D print a shoe that would fit you perfectly, like the princess from one of those Disney shows. Anyway, so don't think of it that if you're an accountant, you need to go to accounting events. It's actually the worst one to go to, because there's too many accountants. There's too much competition. Go to an event in an industry that you really love and really enjoy. And so, pick the eyes out of them, because you may be the only student there. And if you can go there and you can have an opinion and you can talk about software and the latest and greatest technologies and innovation, you will surprise yourself at how many people you will get connected to and referred to, and perhaps even get a job. Now, we've got quite a few questions coming through, so we're going to try
Great.
quite a few straight away. And this one is probably one for you. I graduated from Swinburne 2 years ago. Can I still get career service support now? Now, I don't know that Swinburne will, but we're happy to give you support. What do you think, Tracy?
I'm sure there would be, and again, it's kind of one of those interesting things where I love the point where you said don't go necessarily to the industry that you're trying to get into because of all the reasons you've stated. And it was interesting enough, when I was kind of prepping myself, I came up with all these lists and I surprised myself the number of different alternatives outside of, yes, go to your industry associations and things like that. But the other thing is, in some other type of things outside that you may not consider, is alumni groups. And I guess maybe, going to something from like a Swinburne alumni group, there's an incredible amount, depending on what kind of industry sector you're looking at or anything like that, that are people that have, you'd be surprised the amount of famous people and celebrities that have actually graduated from Swinburne, who are actually still actively involved in their alumni and with Swinburne and things like that. So that's, there's something. And again, I would probably, like to your example, imagine that there's not a lot of students maybe reaching out to the alumni groups at, the different universities and things like that. I think there's also, other ones that you maybe not have considered outside of your kind of industry sector is, I'm a huge fan, and Melbourne being the event capital of Australia, I'm a huge fan of the number of festivals that we have here in Australia. And I'm not just talking music festivals or fashion festivals necessarily. Last week was, if people don't know, last week was Melbourne Knowledge Week, which is put on by the city of Melbourne. And the most incredible, you can actually still log on and go back as a plug from Melbourne Knowledge Week. You can go back on and watch some of the programs and some of the workshops that they did and webinars that they did. But again, it's like I go to these things from a sense of this curiosity, even after 40 years of going, what is it that's happening out in the rest of the world that isn't necessarily my own little, safe little environment, that I go, oh my God, look what they're talking about. They're talking about the future of Melbourne as a city, and they're talking about what's happening, economically, or how is the way that we work going to be different, and, thinking, that whole thinking differently. And there was so many fascinating people from all different backgrounds that you would never have perhaps considered if you're only looking at that kind of, limited scope of, your industry sector. So do that, look at some of the different festivals, things like TEDx, Pause Fest, another huge festival here in Australia, in Melbourne, that happens every year. Go on the City of Melbourne website and look at the different types of events that they're happening, that they've got. And, like Meetups, which is another great resource, there are literally scores and scores of different events that are happening every single week, large ones and small ones.
I'm trying to keep count of all the good advice we're giving for everyone. So just a little bit of a recap. First one, meetup.com. Get on that, look for events, not specific to your study group, but industries that you absolutely love. Eventbrite is another great one.
Yep.
Have an opinion. Make sure you go there with an opinion. Be remarkable, be memorable. And that's also goes to, I remember that there was this terrific young man called Daniel who had hair tied up in a bow at the back, and he had this shirt that probably looked better on a picnic table. And I always remembered him because of that. And so from then on, I was never able to forget him. So even the way you dress, the way you speak, all that type of thing. Alumni groups, great ones. So for that question earlier, and there's one from Sam. He's actually asked two questions in one. And I'm going to answer your second one first, Sam. No one cares that you got an accent.
No, look at this voice.
Yeah, have a listen to Tracy. Even me, I'm told that, I speak 7 different languages. None of them are English. No one cares. In fact, we find it intriguing. We love it. So please don't ever be worried about your accent. As long as you can communicate, no one cares. The other one is, how do you make connections for if you're an introverted person? It's just practice and being brave. International students are already incredibly brave. You've left your country, your family, your support networks. You've come to another country for, to do your education or perhaps a better life. You're already brave. You just got to take that next step. So my advice, and this is what I do now, Tracy, I don't know whether you agree with me or not, we've actually banned chairs at all our events now. So Anja knows that we never to set up chairs, because the introverted people just go and sit in the corner all by themselves. No, stand up, grab a beer, or if you don't drink alcohol, grab a soft drink and go up and introduce yourself to people, and it will become second nature. So there are a few tips for you.
I think another little small tip too, if you really are nervous and really not sure, and really not feeling that confidence, take someone with you. Take your best friend with you. Take someone with you. I have a professional colleague, friend of mine. She's in a completely different industry sector than me. And occasionally she'll go, oh, I really want to go to this event, but I really don't want to go by myself. Would you be interested in going along with me?
Yep.
And the rule of thumb is, we can't just stand in the corner and talk, like we're friends.
Yeah.
So we both go, and then we both can kind of look and check out each other across the room, see if each other needs a little extra help, maybe go over and join that conversation and introduce each other to other people. So, don't think you necessarily have to go by yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. And another one too is that can be your buddy. Sorry, Anja, you were going to say.
Oh, no, you're fine. I was just going to say that's one of the reasons that events are fantastic. If you're an introvert, and I, like Tracy, I think even though I'm an introverted extrovert, I lean more towards the introverted side. And the best networkers I've seen network in their everyday life. They'll network when they're at the IGA or at they can network anywhere. But the great thing about meetups is that you can sort of psych yourself up. So you're prepared, you can kind of practice saying a few things if you need to. And I think, like Tracy said, bringing someone with you is another great way just to boost your confidence a little bit.
Now, Anja, I'm going to put you on the spot here. I'm going to be a little bit controversial. You're a young person. Seriously, for all of you out there, Anja, can you believe that this young lady's only 21 and she now manages all our marketing? She is a superstar. So listen to what she says. Now, Anja, I believe, and again, this could be controversial, I reckon alcohol helps. I reckon having a little drink. I reckon having a beer in your hand, just, you don't have to drink too much, and we don't promote that people should, get themselves blind at events, but to have that alcohol in your hand somehow gives you the courage to go up to people and introduce yourself and say good day. What do you think?
Oh, I'm not a huge drinker, but I think having like a little thing, like you said, not just one or two drinks can help give you, that little bit of liquid courage or Dutch courage can be good. And I think even with that sort of thing, it's like the act of having something to hold. Because, if you're a bit shy, if you're a bit introverted, sometimes you can become a bit self-conscious of what am I doing with my hands? Or, you can become overly self-conscious. So I think having something to do with your hands is also really helpful.
And the psychologists in the audience might be able to give us a little bit of science behind it. But yes, again, having a drink, eating, and chatting with someone, perhaps, oh, aren't these delicious? Isn't this nice? Oh, this beer's terrific. Those type of things can kind of break the ice and just help you rather than you really having to jump in and talk about whatever it is that you've gone there to talk about. Couple more questions. What is the best way for a person with no experience in the field of marketing and digital marketing to look for jobs? Anja, what about you? You're a marketer.
Yeah, well, I think most of the jobs, most of my favorite jobs anyway, that have been in the industry have all been gotten through networking. So one of my first jobs in the industry was actually through Swinburne. I had Tracy and a few other teachers recommend me for a professional internship at Swinburne University in the events team. But part of getting that was that I stuck my hand up to lead, I think, at least 5 projects during the time I was studying. A lot of people didn't want to lead the projects because it's a bunch of extra work, but I thought, it's the best way to get your hands in and just to give it a go. So I think getting as involved as you can with anything that's hands-on experience in the industry is fantastic. And another thing I did is I actually did an internship, a remote internship with a software not-for-profit called Tidepool that was based in the US. And that ended up turning into a job for me down the track as well. So, yeah.
Well, okay. There's another question here. Leading into that question, I've always thought that a great thing for students, what they can do to prepare themselves for networking events and their first job, is to learn the contemporary software in their field. Now, it is not up to the university to teach you the latest and greatest in software because it moves too fast. Okay, there's no way a university is going to be able to keep up with that. So, Anja, can I ask, at the moment in marketing, what's a couple of the latest software that students should make themselves aware of and perhaps lead in as something they can talk about with prospective employers that they meet at meetups?
That's a great question. One of my favorite hacks that I found from one of my marketing mentors is HubSpot. So at the moment, if you're in marketing, HubSpot is one of the largest tools because it just does everything. It does social media automation, email automation, customer relationship management. There's so many things that HubSpot does. But another thing that HubSpot does, which is absolutely fantastic, is they have a completely 100% free academy that you can do online. You sign up and you can do a bunch of courses. So you can do courses in social media marketing, in design, in website, and in actually learning the software as well. So if you go to HubSpot Academy, that is one of the best resources that I tell young marketers to both learn the HubSpot software, but they also do quite a lot of things on general marketing skills and knowledge. That's a great starting place. Nowadays, Salesforce is another great one that's really becoming a competitor, or sort of same but different thing from HubSpot. And then there's lots of free versions or lower cost versions that some smaller businesses use. Things like Buffer or, Google Suite is always something that you use in almost any kind of industry you work in. So just some places to start. Just, again, a great thing to chat to people at meetups. If you're not sure what to say, go, oh, cool. Well, I've heard about these marketing tools and I think they're great, but what do you think about other marketing tools? So, go and ask people, use it as an icebreaker.
And so my thought on that, and these are all CRMs, which a lot of companies really want to use. And I definitely agree with Anja, go and learn them. We use HubSpot ourselves. HubSpot is great because it's aimed at smaller to medium companies, and smaller to medium companies are international students' best friends, okay? They don't have those ridiculous HR policies that do not allow international students to apply for jobs and to apply for internships. Salesforce is probably at that end. So know our spots where you want to put yourself. Buffer, I think, is fantastic because it has a really good freemium model. And if you know that, this could be a great question for you to ask someone. Say, hey, do you use a contemporary piece of software like Buffer in your business? And if they say no, say, hey, would you like me to show you how to use it? I'll come in and help you set it up. Just come in for a couple of hours. They will be blown away that you would be doing something like that. Now, Tracy, can I ask, and this is in answer to another question, LinkedIn. How important is LinkedIn for students that are going to events?
It's super important when you're starting out your career. It's, I joined LinkedIn nearly 20 years ago when it very first started. And it will be a useful tool for you through the progression of your entire career. Particularly though, and we do teach it in some of the classes that we have, about a lot of students come in and actually have never even heard of LinkedIn. So we actually have to explain what LinkedIn is. And then we get them to set up their own profile. We help them put their profiles together. We help them, manage and go through well, then how do you start connecting with people? And again, it's not about just randomly sending out, invites to different people. It's about a really concerted effort of how you want to meet people. So it is from that really important starting out your career, being able to have the skills and experience listed on LinkedIn that you have. And again, some of the interests that you have. I think the another crucial kind of thing, a value of LinkedIn is when you linked in with somebody, really look at their profile and scroll all the way down to the bottom, right? Scroll all the way down to the bottom and you will see what kind of groups they belong to. So look at who they are following or what groups in particular that they are involved in and follow, and then go and check those out and see if there's some kind of connection that goes, oh, that's curious to me. I might be interested in having that kind of same connection, and maybe that person can help introduce me to other people within that group. Yes. So you can see how, how it can spread, how one connection can spread to many. And can help you on that journey of really building your LinkedIn profile and really being able to use that. And the other thing is obviously, rule number one, keep it current. Keep it current with the current skill sets that you've got. And if you're taking things like webinars, if you're doing anything that's providing a learning experience for you, make sure you put that on as part of your skills and experience and learnings that you have. So
absolutely. So a couple of things there. Keep your LinkedIn profile up to date. I believe it's actually more important than your resume. And the reason why I say that, and we do run a LinkedIn workshop on behalf of Study Melbourne, and Anja, thank you for putting that in the chat. We encourage all of you to come along. I run it. I'm very funny, and I will get your LinkedIn profile up to date so it's working for you 24/7. Because the issue I have with resumes is that most employers know that you've changed the resume to suit the job application. So it's not lying, but it's pretty close. And so people will always look at your LinkedIn profile to find out the truth you're happy to put out in the public domain. So it's really important to bear that in mind. But there's one magic rule with LinkedIn, and that is that whenever you go to connect with someone, you must send a personalized note with every invite connection. So now I encourage you to connect with me, and I'm sure Tracy won't mind also today, but if you do, when you connect with us, it's easy on your PC because when you hit connect, it will then say add a note, and that's where you add it. And you say something like, hi Dom, you don't call me Dominic because only my mum calls me Dominic, okay? Everyone else calls me Dom. And by saying Dom, you've proven to me that you've met me because you know I'm called Dom, not Dominic. So, hi Dom, thanks so much for sharing your thoughts on how to get more employable by attending events. Would love to catch up with you for a coffee one day, something like that. It would be rude of me not to connect with you. Now, if you're doing it on a mobile, there's an extra hit and then it says personalized invite. You must use that. You do not need LinkedIn Premium. I do not have it. Anja doesn't have it. Tracy,
I've never had it. Never had it.
And so LinkedIn try and get you to join it by offering this thing called in-mails. You do not need to use in-mails to send a personal note. So you do not need it. I would rather you buy me a beer instead. Save your money. Okay, so don't get LinkedIn Premium, but really, really good. Couple more questions. I've been to events talking to mentors and they ask me what my passion is and I don't know.
What?
How do you find your passion, Tracy? I would say go to events and you'll soon find it.
Absolutely. And I think the question, when someone asks you a question like that, it isn't, I don't think they're necessarily, don't assume that they're talking about, you know, from a career or job perspective. This is the whole point of building relationships, is finding out about who people really are. So, you know, feel free, if somebody asks you that question and your passion happens to be, you know, I don't know, car racing, talked about it, you know, because you actually might find another connection to that. Or they might say, hey, you know, that's really interesting. You know, my brother-in-law's is really interested in that. And you go, oh, well, what does your brother-in-law do? And who is this person? And suddenly now you're talking not just to the person that you're talking to and building a relationship with them, but you're finding out, the potential of other contacts, but valuable contacts that have a mutual interest together.
Yeah, terrific. Another question, and I'll answer this one. Can you please tell me about engineering meetups such as electrical or civil? Easy, meetup.com and Eventbrite, but all the industry associations in no matter what field you're in, whether it be, and someone asked about clinical things before, whether it be hospitals, clinical, engineering, marketing, accounting, all the industry associations have got events listed on their websites. So please go and check out them and rock along to those. What's the best way for getting a job with no experience in your field? Simple, do an internship. If your university does not allow, well, first of all, if your university allows you to do a work placement, my advice, as a dad of 2 kids in uni, do the work placement. I think you're going to get a lot more out of it than perhaps doing an extra elective subject. If your uni or education provider doesn't offer that, come and see us at Outcome.Life. You can go through our program and you can do it outside of university. So that's a great way to do it. Another one is volunteering. There's a lot of volunteering you can do. Now make sure it's legal volunteering. We don't want anyone to get in trouble with their visas, but you know, not non-for-profits and so forth. There's a lot of volunteering that you can do out there. And I would even say, Tracy, there's a lot of events that you could volunteer for. Would that be right? Tell us about that.
Absolutely. And again, it kind of ties into that you know, what is your personal brand? What are you passionate about? What are you curious about? And being able to volunteer at some of those type of events, again, is going to extend and be able to help build that network. And, you know, particularly as part of the Diploma of Event Management, you have to actually complete so many hours of actual volunteering. And again, the more that you have that, we've had students who have gotten jobs directly from one volunteering experience. I've got somebody who's now a marketing manager who was a student in the Diploma of Event Management, was volunteering at an event. She was working at a trade expo type of thing, and she was working on this particular stand. The woman actually next door that had another trade show stand watched her all day long and then walked over and said, "You are amazing. I want to hire you." So It wasn't even the person she was working for, the group that she was working for, it was somebody else saw her. And now after several years, 2 or 3 years, she's a marketing manager at a business. So it is so important. And again, then also that connection, see, everything's connected to one another, connecting back into your LinkedIn profile. Whatever volunteering or internships that you do, you need to put those on there as well. Yep. Because people like me, and let me tell you, after 40 years of running businesses, I have probably seen not hundreds of thousands, probably millions of CVs and resumes. And everybody always asks, you know, how can I get experience, or how can I get a job when supposedly I don't really have that practical experience? And I go, well, if you've done volunteering, if you've done jobs, and quite frankly, 40 years ago, I got my first job because I volunteered somewhere. I gave up my time. I came in. I did another thing to talk about is informational interviews. And I came in, I talked to them. I didn't ask for a job. I just said, I want to have an informational interview with you. They offered me the chance to come in and do some volunteering. I did. And within about a month, they hired me.
Yep. And that happens all the time. And also look out for people in Australia. Australians love to refer good people. It's part of our culture. And Anja, I don't know if you can go and grab it, but there's a really good video of Isabella. Now, Isabella did an internship with us at a firm. This was in the middle of COVID. She never actually stepped foot inside the organisation physically. She did everything remotely. And they loved her so much, they would have loved to have taken her on, but they couldn't. They didn't have the budget to do it. But her supervisor rang a friend and said, hey, I've got this terrific young lady here. I've been training her for the past 12 weeks. You should take her on. And she finished up 1 week at her internship, started at the other business in a full-time capacity the following week. So, you know, that happens all the time. So don't think that you need to get a job off the person you meet. They would love to refer young people, and always a warm referral is always better than applying cold. There was a good question here that I hope I can answer. Could you suggest how to approach a team working on a desirable project to get a PhD position? My answer to that is, if you don't ask, you don't get. And really, it's not about approaching them and asking them for a position. Approach them asking intelligent questions, okay? So, you know, some knowledge that you know, ask some questions. And you need to show them that you have an interest. And in doing so, they'll go, wow, this person is interesting. They're asking all the right questions. You will find, well, you will be amazed at how the conversation will continue to go on. So I reckon that's a really good one. What about law graduates? You've done all the above. I'll be honest, law is tough. It's, to me, I actually believe the universities are producing too many law graduates. So therefore, all I can say to you is, you got to work harder, get yourself out there more. And remember that there's a lot of companies that will take on law graduates as well, not just the law firms. A lot of companies have internal law departments. And if you rock up to these events and you happen to meet, you know, the internal law person from a company, and you chat with them and tell them what you're interested in, all I can say is you got to work harder. What else have we got? Thanks for the webinar. Thank you. We appreciate it, Chris, your kind words, for the helpful tips. Oh, that's just a very good comment. Chris, thank you. Appreciate it. Where can we look for volunteer work, Tracy?
Oh gosh, there's all sorts of different opportunities. And again, it'll depend on what kind of, industry sector or what kind of things that you're passionate about. But for example, even things like if you are fashion orientated, you can go to the city of Melbourne and look at all the different events that they hold every year, whether it's Comedy Fest or Fashion Fest or the film festival, and actually go and volunteer. And you could go onto their websites, go onto their specific website, say it's the comedy festival, go on. There will always be something, a page that will say, hey, do you want to come and volunteer or work for us? And then just go out and start applying to those. So,
yeah. And even just Googling, where can I volunteer, or volunteering opportunities available? There's an endless amount. Now, there is one question here that asks, how do we deal with racism in the workplace? And thank you for that question. We're not going to answer it here. It's too big an issue, and we perhaps may tackle that in another webinar. There's a good one here, though, that I love. I completed my studies in business analytics, and I'm very passionate about digital marketing. I have volunteering experience too. However, I'm a bit nervous if recruiters ask me about it because they want to know why I'm not applying in my field of study. We get it. We get it. Even my kids, they've studied something, but their interest is somewhere else. We want you to do what you're passionate about. Okay. Now, a little bit about what's happened in the last decade and what's happening in the future, in the next decade. The last decade was about mobile and social. The next decade is going to be about data and automation. So I think as a data analyst person, you could do data analytics in the marketing field. Anja, how useful would that be to have someone analysing all the data analytics in marketing? They kind of go hand in hand, don't they?
Absolutely. Analytics is a huge part of marketing. And in fact, marketing is a really booming industry now. It's really popular, but people are increasingly looking for really good marketing people. So if you are really good and you have a specialization, that's really, really fantastic. Yeah, we always need more data. It's a big part of what we base everything on.
And Anja, you would probably know more than me, but how many open opportunities do we have with host companies that would love an intern to come in and do automated marketing and analytics around automated marketing?
Everyone wants a marketing intern, Dom. Everybody wants a marketing intern. And I would also say to anyone, if you've done something else, you've studied something else, or maybe worked in a different industry for a few years and then you're changing over, a lot of people come and they're really worried that they're basically starting afresh, but you're not starting afresh. You have a very unique selling point because, like you said, if you're a business analyst who's become a marketer, then you've got a different view on analytics than someone who's trained as a marketer would. It's never too late, and your previous experience is never a problem. It's only another boost. It's another way of making you remarkable. It's another way of making you interesting. All of your experience is always going to be helpful. Your experience is never going to work against you.
And
absolutely.
And so in preparing themselves, Anja, in that marketing field, what are some of the key things that they should know about if they're going to be talking to someone at a meetup about marketing KPIs that you track? What are the most important ones? The top 2 or 3?
Yeah. So a lot of the things we talk about is we've got our reach metrics. So that's reach, impressions, all of those are sort of your brand awareness metrics.
Yep.
Although sometimes in marketing, we also call those vanity metrics. Then you've got any of your engagement metrics. That means people that are commenting, liking, they're actively engaging with your content. And then one of the most important things is we have our conversion metrics. This is a really big one. This is everything like clicks, anything, people buying something. These are the most sort of meaningful metrics, sort of in my opinion. But yeah, you've got those sort of brand awareness, conversion, and then engagement metrics are the big ones.
And so I'm, as you know, Anja, I leave the marketing to you. I'm not a big marketing, but do they get this from Google Analytics? Like, is that where the data comes from, or do they come from other places?
Yeah, so they can come from a lot of places. A lot of website data often comes from Google Analytics. However, social media metrics at the moment, if you don't have the budget for a really big social tool like Sprout Social or one of those sorts of things, you can get all of those analytics directly from the platform. So for example, Facebook has Facebook analytics and Instagram analytics. Twitter has their own analytics. YouTube has their own analytics. All of those places have their own native analytics, as well as a bunch of analytical tools that you can buy and invest in if you're a medium sort of to larger sized company.
Cool, thank you. Now, Tim Powell, now, you asked, currently I'm doing IT as an international student. Can you tell me where are the opportunities in this field? The issue with what you're asking is actually what you're asking. If you're going to introduce yourself as an IT person, it's just too broad. You need to tell us whether you're a developer, whether you're doing marketing, what is it in IT? It's far too broad. There's DevOps, there's all sorts of things. So this is a real important point for every single international student. When you speak to someone, you can't just say that I'm a student studying a Masters of Engineering or a Masters of IT, or it's just too broad. What you say is that you're a mechanical engineer and I help maintain equipment or whatever it is that you do, or I'm a front-end soft developer and I'm really good at React. You've got to be far more specific to get the conversation going. You know, if you aim at nothing, you'll hit it with incredible accuracy. One of my favorite sayings. So you've got to be really specific and seek out the type of opportunities that you're after. So perhaps whack in what area of IT that you really want to focus on, and we'll try and answer that question. Now, a really important one from Mohammed. This is probably the one that we get asked so many times. Most internships and jobs in my field, construction and building, show requirement for having permanent residency. I know, and it sucks. And I wish I could do something about it. So my advice to you is go for the smaller companies, the smaller businesses. They do not care if you do not have PR, okay? The big companies have got HR people that have these policies that I do not agree with, but I can't do anything about it. So to get to the big companies, and yes, I want you to work in a big company one day if that's what you want to do, but it may be a two-step process for you. So do an internship or apply for jobs in smaller companies that could not care less. They just want good people that are going to deliver value. And they know that no one hangs around in a job for 2 years these days. So what do they care? You're on your 485 or whatever the number is these days. Once you've graduated, it gives you a 2-year working visa. They would love to have you there, even for 12 months, and do some good work for them. Our very last question. Oh no, that was all done. Some final words, Tracy.
Wow, final words.
How can people become more employable by going to events? I mean, all the things that we spoke about, but just get out there.
Yeah. I think, there's some of the key things that we spoke about of doing some homework before you go, picking the right types of things that you're going to. Be curious.
Yes.
Start with things that you're passionate about, because it'll be easier to have those conversations. Know what your personal brand is, and have that to what your point is, to have that very well defined, whether it is your career focus, your skills and experience, your outside passions and things like that, to really put yourself out there and, find those mechanisms and find the different, I think we've outlined, I don't even know, I lost track of how many different kinds of avenues to go out that aren't just necessarily meetups or networks either. Another one that we didn't really actually, the couple of ones that we, I could do probably a whole different seminar on, is around your own social network, of understanding of, who are your friends and your family, and who are their extended friends and family that might help you or might provide you some information or things like that. And then my other personal favorite one is the idea of informational interviews. And again, we could have a whole conversation about what are they and why are they so successful? And I've done it throughout my career. And had enormous success around being involved in informational interviews.
And so are those things like only yesterday I got interviewed by 3 international students doing an assignment on entrepreneurs, because I've started quite a number of businesses. Is that what you mean by an informational interview?
Well, for example, here's an example, real life example from me. I was living in America. I was well into my career and things like that. I had some friends that lived over in the UK. So I went over for a holiday. And because I was going over on a holiday, they were going to work. So I thought, well, what am I going to do during the day and things like that? So what I did is I researched a whole bunch of companies that were very similar to the type of industry that I'm in and things like that. At the time, it was in the event industry. So it went, what's going on in the event industry in the UK? I have no idea. So I went. It is really kind of an amazing story because I hooked up with this person. I said, hey, I'm just over here. I'm on holiday. I would love just to have a chat, buy you a coffee. Please, if you could allow me an hour of your time just to talk about what's happening in the industry over there, and are there things that I could learn from it, and whatnot. So I went to this informational interview. It went on for 4 hours. Out of it came a job offer for me to move overseas and to move to the UK to actually work and help them start up a new division of their event company. I just thought I was going for a cup of coffee.
So but I would say, Tracy, though, that this has happened to me too, where people reach out, can I have a cup of coffee? I'm very time poor and rarely do I do it. And if someone says, I want to catch up with you for a cup of coffee, I normally say no. But if someone was to say to me that, I'm doing this for an assignment for university, I always say yes. And also if they're saying, I'd love to talk to you about a specific issue in your industry, and whether it be software or whether it be, and imagine if you approached a company that you would really love to work for and speak to them about automating their marketing processes.
That's right. That's right. It is about having something that perhaps they need, or something that that's important about that particular business. And having run numerous businesses, large and small, all over the world, the amount of times that I would also get those, and yes, I was obviously very time poor being being an MD and things like that. But at the same time, if someone came to me, and again, it's about them being proactive, and I go, you know what, you're proactive. You're not just sending something to me saying, do you have a job? Can I come work for you? It's like, well, no. It's like, if you're approaching it, and I knew ultimately the reason why they're doing this is because, yes, they probably would like a job. Yeah. But they came with I'm really interested in hearing more about the type of work that you've done. I've gone to your website. I've seen some of your work. I might have some questions about it, or I might even have an opinion about it, and I'd like to talk to you about it, or my skills might be complementary, and think, whatever that is. Yep. It's just a different way than just going, hey, I've researched it. Your company I want to work for, and do you have a job for me? Yep. So you're going to get there. You're going to get there in the end. But you're taking a softer approach of how you're going to, get that perfect job at that perfect company.
Fantastic. Tracy, thank you so much for your comments today. We really appreciate it. Anja, do you have anything final you want to say?
Just that, meetups are great because they help you network, and networking gives you opportunities. And make sure, that you say yes to opportunities as well, because opportunities might not just look like a job. They might look like an internship. They might look like volunteering. I had a teacher at one of my courses who asked me 5 minutes before a panel, will you be a panelist? And I freaked out and I said no. And then I said, okay, actually, yes, I'll do it. I put my hand up for to lead a bunch of projects at uni. So it's all about, even if it's a bit scary, even if you're not entirely sure how you'll do, just practice saying yes. And you'll find that the more you practice, the better you'll get, the easier it'll be to talk to people, and you'll end up building a really, really good network of people. So never be afraid to just give it a go.
Fantastic, Anja, thank you. And my final comments are that remember that every time you meet someone, especially an older person, that is the interview. And so you got to make sure that you are on, that you've explained yourself well, you've been very specific about, what your interests are, what you're passionate about, you're very respectful, you connect with them on LinkedIn, you never know what will happen. And I personally have employed probably 6 of my staff because I met them at a meetup event. And so I'm the perfect example of how this is how I recruit my business. And I know a lot of other business owners recruit as well. Don't forget about the smaller companies. because they're the ones that love international students, because all they care about is value. They don't care where you're from. And so hence look out for those and give them a go. Thank you, Anja. Thank you, Tracy. Thank you, Study Melbourne Global Vic. We couldn't do this without you. Anja, what's our next one? Do we have another one coming up?
Yes, we do. In a few weeks, and it's actually a very great follow-on from this, we have all about getting the most out of LinkedIn. So that's an awesome follow-up to this one, because like we've all been talking about, LinkedIn is the digital tool to use for networking and to complement all the in-person networking that you're doing.
And if you haven't been active on LinkedIn up until this point, the greatest time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second greatest time is today. So get on, get your profiles updated, nice photo, make sure you're getting out there and connecting with people at all these wonderful events by sending them a note. Thanks again to everyone. Terrific webinar, I think, today. So yeah, thank you to everyone. And we will catch you next time. Thanks very much, everyone. See you later.
Thank you.
See ya. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.